What's going on, everybody? So we are actually out working on Sylvia now. We're gonna go through and start taking out the spark plugs. These are the coil packs. That's the words that I was losing earlier in the last video. We're gonna go through and take out the old spark plugs, and then we're gonna compare them to the new ones, which these are in there pretty good. Obviously, these are the factory ones. We're gonna go through and get these taken out, and then we'll compare. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the old one here. You can see that the gap on it is still pretty good. It is a little burnt, but I mean, it's not as bad as I was expecting. Now, comparing that to the new one, the gap on that one there is obviously a lot closer because it's a lot fresher. Just to give them a side-by-side here. Camera's not wanting to focus, but you can see the general idea. So we're gonna go through and put all these in to all 6 of them. We are doing one at a time, so this way we're not getting the coil plugs mixed up or anything, because they are all individually numbered as well, which, this one's not, but these over here were. So these were actually all numbered on this side, and this one for some, that's why, because it's number 1, it didn't need to be marked. Either way, you can see that on each one of these here, they are numbered. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're gonna go through and get this done, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so I got number 1 put back in here. We're gonna go through and work on number 2. I am actually going through and putting in the AC Delcos, which are actually the factory OEM. These were actually not as cheap as I was expecting, but at the same time they weren't that expensive. They were only roughly about $9 a piece for the individual spark plugs. So after everything was said and done, I spent roughly about, it was closer to 80, because I ended up having to also buy the extension arm to go down in there, because I did not have that. So we're gonna go through and get all these taken out. Like I said, they are factory tightened in there, but we're gonna go through and get that done, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've got the right bank done. Now I'm gonna go through and do the left bank here. Okay, so I wanted to pause for a moment. This one here is actually out of this front cylinder over here, which is actually number 4. This one here is actually worn pretty well. It's a lot darker than the other ones, but don't understand why that side's darker than this one, but this one here is actually the darkest out of all the 4 that I've done so far, so it's definitely interesting. But anyways, moving on, wanted to share. Okay, so we got that last one put in. The last coil pack is in there now too. Push all these down just enough to where they're not gonna come out or create any gap there. And then obviously once we get the bolts to actually hold them down into place, there won't be any of the clearance issues. Like this one's wanting to pop back up. There we go. So we've got that part done. Now we're gonna go through and put the manifold back on, I believe. Actually, no, we're gonna hold off on that right now. I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna mock the cover on top here, so this way I can get the catch can installed. Because in this way we have at least the proper stuff. We gotta go through and cut the tubing for that kit, get that all taken care of as well. So we're gonna do that right now. Okay, so just a little bit of a status update. I did take out the post that actually holds the cover on off. I went through and I modified the bracket by putting a hole a little off center, just because I want the catch can to sit down lower down here, as well as I don't want it dead center, because if it is, then it's too close to the ECU that's over here. So I got that modified. I did actually cut this back as well, so this way I can actually attach the hose up a little further, so this way it's not just off the edge. And then obviously the other connecting piece that goes on top of the the intake manifold, I'm gonna go through and attach the out port to that as well. So we're gonna go through and get that done, and then you guys will see the next step. Okay, so I've got the mounting bracket attached to the catch can now. Now we're gonna go through and put the stud back through its bracket to where it is ready to go for the tubing that we gotta do next. So we're gonna get this mounted back up, and we will be right back. Okay, so I got that installed. Yes, there is a little bit of extra gap here now, but because of how negligible it will be. You won't notice from the top cover. As well as I do have to shave down this other side anyways because of the clearance of the tube from the K&N cold air intake that comes into the throttle body that's right here. So we're gonna go through and modify that in a later video, as well as possibly fixing the gouge that's been worn away from the top cover in the first place. I don't think K&N took that into account when they were making the kit, but that's not their fault. I should have noticed when I was putting it together. But when I first put it on, it was back in 2014. I was freshly excited with the brand new car. This is actually my first brand new car I've ever owned. I actually did it by myself. I was super proud of it. I am still super proud of it. It just goes to show that if you put your effort into something, it can be what you want it to be. So that is a good motto for this channel. Speaking of the channel, I am going to be making some changes. I am actually thinking about converting the title of the channel to SSBC Garage, which obviously stands for SylviaSilverBulletCamaro, but for short, just for references, double SBC Garage, obviously. But what do you guys think? Drop a comment. What do you think of it being SSBC, double SBC, going through and having the different title for the channel? Or should I create a separate channel and have basically this current channel for my daily stuff, as well as that other channel for strictly working on the car? What do you guys think? Drop a comment. So let's start another chat. Anyways, let me know. Okay, so I've got the tubing cut to where it needs to be. I'm going through and I'm putting the hose clamps on. I did slide this up about almost 2 inches for the hose itself. Now the kit itself did come with these hose clamps. These hose clamps are smaller than the ones that I actually ended up buying, but that is by design. The reason being is because I don't want to have clearance issues underneath of the cover with the other wires and hoses and everything else that's on this side. So we're going through and putting this on. Now obviously you don't want to do it too tight because then that would constrict the flow of the tube itself, but because it is, obviously it's a hard plastic at this point. I believe it is actually a hard plastic to begin with, but I did put it up there. We cinched it down. We cinched it down pretty good. And then for the other side, the hose clamps that I got are a little bit bigger. Not by much, but just a little. And these here are actually going to be more of a, because of where their location's actually going to be, I didn't want them to have any clearance issues or anything like that. So I'm actually going to go through and put the bolts themselves up on top so I can actually tighten them down on opposite sides. So this way they're obviously uniform. So we're going to get that done. We'll be right back. Okay, so we put the manifold back on there. I'm still going to leave all the cover tape and everything else. I just want to go through and do a fitting basically to see how long of tubing we're actually going to need, because I don't think we're going to need this whole length that I still have, which is at least a good 2 feet here. We're going to go through and try putting that on. Now the catch can of where it's at right now, it is at a lower point. That's kind of not really going to matter just because this is also a vacuum line. So it's actually going to be forcing pressure throughout this whole setup anyways. I do believe that if we go through and route it like this, we should be able to cut off. Yeah, I'm going to say roughly about there. So just to mark it, I've got my clamps here, because in this way I can grab my the tubing cutter that I have. It's one of the ratchet style. It's normally meant for like plumbing PVC, but it cuts hoses and tubing alike. So it works. Got it at Lowe's. Works pretty good. Now from here, we just got to go through and fit the PCV into the tube itself. You can see that we've got it in there quite well. Now we're just going to go through and finish getting all this mounted up. We'll get the clamps put on there and then we should be good to go. Yep, I like that. We'll get it finished up. We'll be right back. Okay, so I changed my mind. I took the tape off and put the PCV back into its place because it is just one of those twist off ones. It'll actually come up the second that I do that, so it's not that big of a deal. But we're locking it in place just temporarily, just so we can go through and get everything measured up. And I have everything where we want it now for this portion of it. Just tightening down this last hose clamp, which got that done. Now we're going to go through and grab the top and make sure that there's no clearance issues with any of this stuff. There shouldn't be, because this here just originally ran out this way. It'll probably just force the hose down, which, because of how I created the loop here, it's not going to, or it shouldn't have any clearance issues. So let me grab that real quick. And it's not going to lock it in place because obviously I don't have the manifold where it's supposed to go, but I just want to set this down as a rough estimate, because that should be, oh, got that. Oh, okay, so it's actually going to be more about here. Okay. Interesting. Well, that seems like it's going to be okay. Cool. So I got that portion done. Obviously, we're just going to take the rest of this back apart for now. We're going to cap up with some fresh tape around this PCV here, so this way no dust can get inside of that line. And then we're going to put that piece of tape back over this hole here and store this until we get everything done. I still need to go through and clean off the cylinder heads themselves, and then redo the wiring loom and everything else over here on this side like we had talked about in one of the previous videos. But at this point, what else do you guys think I should do? Is there anything I'm missing? I have been super tired lately, so I can't really think straight right now without some extra coffee. And I don't have any made right now. And as of right now, it's a little late for that. So I'm not gonna make any. But anyways, post it in the comments. We'll talk about it later. You guys have a wonderful night, and actually a wonderful day, because this is coming out in the morning as usual. But again, post in the comments. Have a great day. We'll talk later.